There's a dark part of me that really likes alternate reality storylines. I kind of enjoy seeing our heroes put in impossible situations where they can't figure out how to save the day, so everyone dies and the planet is destroyed. So today I'm going to be talking about Stargate SG-1, Season 3, Episode 6, Point of View. This episode features the quantum mirror, which I always feel like got a lot of play in the early seasons, but it really only just appeared in this episode and in the season 1 episode, There But For the Grace of God. I remembered in the season 9 episode, Ripple Effect, that they mentioned it was too bad they couldn't use the quantum mirror to send the alternate SG-1s back home, but I couldn't remember exactly what episode the quantum mirror was destroyed, so I looked it up, and there was no episode. It was presumably destroyed off screen after this episode. It's not surprising because a device that allows instantaneous travel between alternate realities is kind of overpowered for a long-running sci-fi series. Like, you could have an entire series just centered around the quantum mirror. So this episode starts out in Area 51. The quantum mirror is in storage, but I guess there's not a way to store it that deactivates it in the same way that you can bury the gate face down so no one can really come through. And then we see an alternate Sam and Major Kowalski come through the mirror. And we know it's an alternate Sam because she has long hair and isn't a major. Which begs the question right now, did I get a haircut or am I an alternate version of myself? I got a haircut and I don't like it. I'm gonna let this thing grow out. It should be fine in like a couple of videos from now. They're brought to the SGC and I guess no one filled in Jack beforehand. He just shows up and is presented with a long-haired Sam.
Whoa.
And his dead best friend.
Except I'm not supposed to be alive in this reality any more than you are in mine.
In our reality, Kowalski is dead, but in their reality, Jack is dead. And Sam says this.
It's not the same with us here, is it?
Which, combined with her reaction at seeing Jack alive, means that they were together in her world.
Where we come from, the ghouls just took over the world, Colonel.
Goa'uld is already plural. You don't need to add an S, unless that's one of the differences between our realities. There's a shot of alternate Sam giving her debriefing on who she is and where she came from and what happened to her, and she's getting really frustrated.
I've told you this. Now let me talk to someone from the SGA. What do I know? Everything. We've been through this.
And now I can kind of see the callback in Stargate Continuum to this scene.
When the autopilot also failed, Mission Commander Samantha Carter stayed behind to fly it.
It wasn't me.
You just said your name.
I was recruited
Stargate
into
Command
the Stargate
is a branch of the
program.
United
Oh my
States.
God, for the umpteenth time.
I'm gonna take a break.
I want to talk to somebody else.
I don't really know if it was intentional in putting sort of a reference to this in Stargate Continuum, or if it's just that, you know, put in this situation, the person giving their debriefing would get very frustrated. It's a good way to catch us up on some of the differences in her reality.
It takes you to other planets. I made it work 4 years ago, and we have been exploring the galaxy ever since. That is, up until yesterday, when the Goa'uld came and started taking over every major city from orbit and making slaves of the population.
We also get the multiverse explanation in this episode, that there are just infinite alternate realities. There wasn't like just the one and now there's another one. There's like so many.
According to quantum theory, for every possible universe, there are an infinite number of variations diverging at every choice we make like forks in the road.
Kowalski reacts poorly to teal'c.
What the hell is he doing here? Kowalski!
I wonder why. I think I remember hearing or reading that Amanda Tapping is just exceptionally talented at acting in scenes where she is responding to someone or something that is not there. And that's why in these types of episodes, she's usually the one interacting with some other version of herself.
Nice hair. Air Force. I can't imagine that, going military. Wow. I can't imagine not.
Also, let's talk for a minute about alternate Sam and alternate Jack and our Sam and our Jack. So I've said before that I really don't like the idea of anyone on SG-1 dating each other. And that does apply to Sam and Jack. And I feel like by showing us that alternate Sam and alternate Jack got together, there is the implication that if it were not for these military regulations, our Sam and our Jack would just totally be together. However, alternate Sam is a completely different person. Her demeanor, even from just what we've seen in the first couple minutes, seems to be very different from our Sam. And she says that, she didn't join the military and she couldn't even imagine it. And I feel like that speaks to some sort of fundamental difference between the two characters' personalities. And that's just Sam. Alternate Jack could have been totally different as well. Like, we don't even get to see him. Also, alternate Sam says that she and Kowalski want to stay in this new reality.
And our own world is under Gould control, so we can't go back.
We want to stay.
That is, if we're wanted.
And honestly, I don't feel like our Sam would do that. I feel like our Sam, as a core part of who she is, would have stayed and would have fought until the absolute bitter end. And the only reason she would have potentially, tried to escape or evacuate would be if she thought that it could do some good somehow, like if she had a plan. They're not the same person. So an alternate Sam and alternate Jack, who have completely different backgrounds and personalities, getting together in an alternate reality has little to no bearing on the choices that characters would make in our reality. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. More Sam versus Sam hostility.
Look, Major, I'm the one dealing with the inadequacy issues here. Just forget about it. What? We knew the Gould were coming for 6 months, but I couldn't think of a way to stop them. You did.
And then alternate Sam goes and gazes wistfully at her and Jack's wedding photo. And you can see that alternate Sam is wearing a wedding band, but I guess nobody asked about that. If I ran into an alternate version of me wearing a wedding band, once I got over the whole shock and just I would be immediately asking, who did we marry? Alternate Sam and Kowalski are allowed to stay, although Hammond just basically gets some bad vibes about it, which never really comes up later.
I take it you figure there's a downside.
It just doesn't sit right.
Jack and alternate Sam talk. She tells him that she watched him die 3 days ago.
I watched you die, Jack. 3 days ago, trying to defend the mountain.
And that they were married.
I take it where you're from, we were...
married.
Their whole conversation is just nails on a chalkboard for me.
And here you are, alive and safe in this perfect world. You don't even know me.
I sort of know you.
You know her. You don't even see her that way, do you?
I'll say it. I don't like alternate Sam. There it is. And it speaks very highly of Amanda Tapping that she can play essentially a variation on the same character, and I strongly dislike that variation while still absolutely loving the original character.
I get confused.
Me too, Jack. Alternate Sam paints a picture of their happy domestic life, thwarted by alien invasion.
We were celebrating our first anniversary. And we got the call that the Gould ships had been spotted entering our solar system. We just left everything. You blew out the candles and I turned off the oven and we just left.
She basically begs him to take the place of her dead Jack, which is just creepy.
I should probably be...
Stay,
Sam.
please.
What I mean is, maybe I'm not the right person to help you.
Yes, you are. You're the only one who can.
And poor Jack, he clearly wants to help her. He wants to comfort her, but he knows that this is weird. Then he runs into our Sam, and I cannot imagine how awkward this would be. Like, if it were me in this situation, I would hate it. I would just go home. Alternate Sam is just brushing her wig when something happens. She begins having these convulsive episodes, but they are not medical.
Not medical, temporal, entropic cascade failure.
On the cellular level?
Yes.
By the way, this is another plot point that they kind of have to walk back in the ripple effect episode. I noticed that our Sam grabs alternate Sam's hand, and it's such a small but very interesting detail. Kowalski is fine because our Kowalski is dead, but alternate Sam is basically in a catch-22 situation.
I'm gonna die here.
You're not gonna die.
Actually, sir.
Carter?
Well, the only way she won't is if we send her back.
If she goes back, the Goa'uld will kill her.
Daniel, of course, wants to help alternate Sam by saving her entire world.
Besides, the only way to really help Dr. Carter is to stop the Goa'uld in her reality and save whatever's left.
Daniel thinks that the Asgard in the alternate reality might be willing to help if Dr. Carter is able to contact them. So we get a call back to the episode The Fifth Race, which is the one where Jack had the ancient database downloaded into his brain, and he created a dialing program to take him to the Asgard homeworld because on some level, the database in his brain knew that the Asgard could help him. But to make the dialing program work, he also needed to build that snazzy lamp thing in order to power the gate. Kowalski, of course, wants to help.
What, you think I'm gonna let her go alone? She's my best friend's wife.
And now Sam realizes what's up. And Jack makes these faces. Also, I mentioned that I don't think our Sam would have just kind of evacuated and jumped ship the way that alternate Sam did, and you may be wondering what my thoughts are on Kowalski. And I think that line about helping his best friend's wife is very telling, and we don't really know enough about Kowalski as a character to know his motivations, but from what we do know, I don't think Kowalski would just escape and save his own life. I think he would want to stay and want to fight and basically go out swinging, except this line is very telling. I think that he was willing to escape because he saw himself as saving Sam. So that essentially was his motivation, and he felt that that was an honorable thing for him to do. Together, they all come up with a plan. They decide that despite the threat of the entropic cascade failure, teal'c can just totally go.
Dr. Carter did not become ill during her first 48 hours. If our mission is not complete within that time, it is most likely that we will be dead.
Hammond agrees.
If you feel confident you can pull this off, I have no objection. However, upon your return, I want that quantum mirror destroyed.
And apparently it is destroyed. Off screen. They don't mention it again till season 9. Also, I guess it's just totally fine for Daniel to go too, using teal'c's logic, even though they have no idea if the Daniel in that reality is alive or dead or even exists at all. Since 2 Sams are better than 1, they work on making the snazzy lamp thing work again. And here we see Amanda Tapping's great chemistry with herself.
And why doesn't it blow up? My best guess is that the deviation is thrown out of whack each time it's activated.
That's exactly what I thought.
Except Sam says something confusing.
I had a hard time trying to figure out how to make this work the first time, let alone make it work again.
I wonder if this is an error, because in the 5th race, Sam didn't do anything with the device. It was just all Jack. They were just kind of let's see what he's gonna do. Meanwhile, Daniel and Kowalski have to flip through the different realities in the quantum mirror, sort of like changing channels on a TV, to figure out which one is the correct reality. Maybe it's just me, but I would be forever paranoid that the reality I went back to was close to my reality, but still not quite right. And like I wouldn't realize it right away. I would only find out later when some small detail is different. Like after weeks of fighting and a triumphant victory, I would finally return home and then discover that my couch is a slightly different color. It takes about 5 minutes for the two Sams to figure out how to fix the device, and I kind of wonder if this ever comes back later. Like now that they know how it works, can't they build more? Because Jack just made it with stuff that was sitting around on the base. But later on, they become pretty dependent on ZPMs when it comes to dialing other galaxies. And now the two Sams say a fond farewell.
We made a good team, Major. Yeah, we did, Doctor. Plus, your hair's kind of grown on me. Pardon the pun.
Turns out, they're not so different after all. Except that they're totally different people. I just wanted to make that joke. Our team goes through the quantum mirror, and Jack and Daniel have this little, like, silent conversation where Jack makes him turn the mirror off. And I feel like they should have brought, like, a tarp or something just to toss over it. Alternate reality teal'c has, like, a little soul patch. And our teal'c must have felt that it looked, like, really good because he grows one himself in season 4. And he dyes it blonde. Apophis has a goatee in this reality. Teal'c straight up murders his alternate self. This is his justification.
As I said, O'Neill, ours is the only reality of consequence.
Jack and Daniel look at each other like, damn. So Daniel's about to dial up the quantum mirror, and Jack's like, hey, I have a very pressing question.
All right, I gotta know.
Yes, I'm about to activate it.
No, not that. What the hell does Kree mean?
And his question turns out to be, what does Kree mean?
Well, actually, it means a lot of things. Loosely translated, it means attention, listen up, concentrate.
Yoo-hoo?
Yes, in a manner of speaking.
And I love that Daniel just answers him. He's not like, this isn't the time, Jack. So turning off the quantum mirror essentially lost their place. So when they turn it back on, it's not going to the reality that they came from. So Daniel basically just has to stay by himself in that closet, unguarded, and keep flipping through the channels on the mirror. Teal'c arrests Sam to get her where she needs to go, and then Jack and Kowalski are off doing their thing. Apophis is torturing poor General Hammond to get the beta site address. Alternate Sam and our Teal'c rescue General Hammond, and they fill him in on the plan.
He's from an alternate reality.
So that mirror thing worked?
Yeah. There's still a chance that we could stop them, sir. We're going to attempt contact with a race of aliens that they have in their reality, enemies of the Gould.
Kowalski asks Jack about him and our Sam, and Jack just responds that she's a major, so of course nothing can happen.
So you and Sam, you never had a thing in your world, huh?
Sam is a major in my world.
Yeah, I know, it's against regulations, right?
Again, giving the implication that if not for those darn military restrictions, they would totally be together.
You two look pretty good together, let me tell you.
Kowalski?
I really like the scene where Daniel kind of thinks he's found the right reality, and Sam's there, and she kind of gestures at him like, what are you doing? And then Daniel realizes that, nope, that Sam is a captain, not a major, so it's still not the right reality. And I feel like this scene kind of suggests that this exact thing is happening like somewhere else between two other alternate realities. Okay, so they get the gate powered and dialed to the Asgard homeworld. Sam makes a break for it, but Teal'c is found out.
Betray me.
I wish Apophis would have, like, dramatically ripped off the soul patch and been like, you are not the Teal'c I know. Daniel's also not having a great time. So he and Jack and Kowalski are now captured. By the way, seeing Daniel's bruised up face it is now time to talk about something that I considered making its own video, except I don't really have enough content to fill up an entire video. And that thing is Whump. W-H-U-M-P. Whump. Whump is the Stargate fandom's contribution to the world of fan fiction. Back in the day, the Stargate fandom coined the term Whump to refer to instances in which specifically Daniel Jackson was beaten up or tortured or injured in some way. I think Whump could also be emotional, but it usually referred to physical injuries. It was used very often in fan fiction to denote stories where Daniel was injured or hurt, and the team, or maybe like one specific member of the team, would essentially have to comfort him. And the term Whump spread to other fandoms to indicate stories where characters were in similar situations. The context of the term wasn't new. Hurt/comfort had existed as a fanfiction category for a while, but this specific term was new, and it was specifically coined by Stargate fans. This is all from the early days of internet fanfiction, and it would be really hard to pull concrete evidence and information. Like, I would be digging into the very darkest depths of the Wayback Machine. So I don't know that, Whump would necessarily be able to get its own video, but now you know about it. Anyway, back to the episode. Things aren't looking too good for our heroes. Daniel gets his very specific passive-aggressive tone when he's snarking at Goa'uld.
What magic is this?
Well, you should know better than anyone there's no such thing as magic.
Apophis kills General Hammond, and Daniel is about to be next when the Asgard show up.
Okay, I'm guessing Asgard. All right.
Do the Jaffa here know who the Asgard are? Because they evacuate immediately. I love how much Jack loves the Asgard.
Oh, come on, you gotta love those guys. Love those guys.
The Asgard bring General Hammond back from the dead, and alternate Sam kisses him on the cheek. And I think she kissed teal'c on the cheek earlier, so this must just be like an alternate Sam thing, and she does. So now it's time for our SG-1 to go back to their own reality. Kowalski salutes teal'c, who has now earned his respect. Okay, so here we go. Alternate Sam is saying goodbye to Jack.
This is hard. Goodbye for a second time.
It's the first time.
It doesn't feel that way to me.
Jack knows this is weird. Like, you can tell that he knows it. And even still, she kisses him and he kisses her back. And I hate this. I hate this so much. First of all, our Sam is standing right there watching this. Like, this is uncomfortable in many different regards. But also, everyone knows that this is not alternate Sam's alternate Jack.
You have to understand, my Jack had the same face, same voice, same hands.
If your husband died, but he had a twin brother, everyone would definitely think that it was creepy if you went after the twin brother as your new replacement husband. This isn't just a peck. They make this as passionate as they could for network television in 1999. This makes me viscerally uncomfortable. And then the episode ends, so we don't have to deal with the awkward consequences of that moment. I know not everyone agrees with me. I know there are a lot of people who are fans of the Sam and Jack relationship. And it's not like I think people are crazy for wanting those two characters to get together. Like, it's definitely set up as a will they, won't they, forbidden romance. And I know that is very appealing to a lot of people. But it's just my opinion that none of SG-1 should date each other. None of them. That applies to the season 10 team, too. I thought about having the next episode that I talk about be past and present, with Daniel's ill-advised rebound after the death of his wife, but then I also kind of think that people are just going to assume that I don't want SG-1 to date anybody, that I just want to keep them all to myself. Stargate Atlantis, on the other hand, someday we're going to talk about how John Shepard has sexual chemistry with every single character on Stargate Atlantis. And it is a problem.